I mean, like, who doesn't love some good girl-on-girl love? Some good sapphic cinema. I didn't know what sapphic meant until probably about 2 months ago. For some reason, I just thought that it was like an umbrella genre term for nudity in film. I read a review of, I think it might have been Gasper Knows Love, and I think it must have like mentioned the word sapphic in it, and I just put the pieces together and assumed that it was just like explicit content. I've not watched all of the lesbian films out there, obviously, but I'd like to say that I've watched quite a few. In like LGBT cinema, there's not as much of a middle ground as there is in romance cinema that has heterosexual couples in it. There's bad straight romance films, and there's good straight romance films, and there's straight romance films that they're okay, you'd watch them, they're still watchable. The type of films that are shown on Film 4 at like 9 PM, or they're played on ITV over the Christmas period as like filler slots or whatever. With sapphic cinema and LGBTQ plus cinema overall, there's more of a defined, there are bad films and there are good films. Obviously, representation is like a big thing in making those films work, and it can either go really well and the representation can be great, or it can be a complete flop. So as it's coming up to Valentine's Day, here are some lesbian romance films that are actually good. Anatomy of a Love Scene. I feel like this film appeals to me personally because of the film set setting. They're basically shooting a film within a film, and for me as a film nerd and a to-be media production student, I was like, yes, that is the selling point. Film production and lesbians. The film is basically about these two actresses who worked together previously, and then they dated and they broke up, and now they have to work together again. I think the time frame that it's set in isn't even a full day of shooting, but it's so good and extremely angsty. Watch this film if you want to feel something, and if you like fairly good acting and fairly good characterization. There is a hint of humour in it, I would say, especially around the archetypal characters that are on the film set setting. I don't know if the script was improvised, but it does have quite a mumblecore vibe to it. Overall, I would say that a lot of the film relies on its good acting and its great dialogue. Imagine Me and You. I think this film was released in like 2006. I'm pretty sure it's a BBC and Fox Searchlight like independent film. It is a romantic comedy, and it's so witty, so charming, and so just hilariously British. I'd say in terms of like plotline and interpersonal relationships, it's quite a slow burn film. It's basically about these two women who meet at a wedding. One of them is the bride and one of them is the wedding's florist, and then they become friends, and then like feelings might happen. I like this film because it is quite lighthearted. Like, although you're rooting for the characters, it's not got a very intense vibe to it. It's sort of like one of those lazy Sunday feel-good films, but also to an extent a feel-bad film if you were single and alone. The next film is called Kiss Me. I think it's originally called Kaismeg or Kaismig, something like that, and it might honestly actually be my new fave lesbian film. It is a Swedish film, but do not be put off by the fact that it has subtitles because it still manages to be so good. I was quite unsure when I originally watched the trailer because it kind of seemed like it didn't translate very well in the one that I watched. I was kind of put off watching it for a little while because I thought that it was going to be bad and that the subtitles were going to make it kind of weird. But boy was I wrong. Like, even if you hate foreign films, the acting in this will make up for it. It is the chemistry between the two main characters that completely sells this film. It's the moments of like pure eye contact and no dialogue at all that make some of the best scenes. I'd say that the synopsis is very similar to the aforementioned Imagine Me and You. It's kind of that cliche story of a girl falling for a girl and then one of them being like, I'm not gay, and then the other one being like, oh really? The film does still manage to make the plotline seem fresh and not at all overplayed. And my final film is Carol. I could not talk about sapphic cinema without mentioning this film. If you haven't seen Carol, like, oh my god, what are you even doing with your life? It is such a beautiful film. The representation is great, the acting is great, the cinematography is great. It's just overall such an aesthetically pleasing film. All my past mentioned films are good and I like them a lot, but they do miss out on the kind of artsy flair that Carol has. It is as if they're more made to tell a story, whereas Carol is more made to tell a story and act as a sort of piece of art. The director Todd Haynes does such an amazing job in this film, and without spoiling it for you, I'd say that some of the best scenes and some of my favourite scenes are the ones that are shot in cars. If anything, it's like practically halfway to a road movie. My favourite scene in the film is about 2/3 in, I would say, and it's just after the main plot disruption has occurred and Therese and Carol are driving along a road and Therese is crying about what just happened, and Carol pulls over and she scoots along in her seat and she puts her hand on Therese's face and she reassures her that what has happened is not her fault. And then they just look at each other for a couple of seconds and then they just carry on driving. The director doesn't make them kiss, he doesn't make them hug, he doesn't make them embrace. They just have to look at each other and the reassurance is solely in that. Damn, I love that film. So those are my top fave lady-loving sapphic cinema films. There's obviously more than 4 good ones out there. I'll try and see if I can think of a few more to add in the description, but I just didn't want this video to be like 10 minutes long. So yeah, if you're looking for some good films to watch when you are sad and alone on Valentine's Day, like me, then there you go. No need to thank me. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave some comments down below of your own film recommendations. And I will see you next